next slide, I want to talk about what we mean by light and tight. That is often the mantra that we chant on the OnFarm team. And what we mean by that really does capture some of the element that we just heard from Allison there, where we think about the fact that we know we got a lot of busy folks that are doing this work. We also know that we are crossing across disciplines. And so we're asking people who are not experts in diseases to be collecting disease information because maybe they're a weeds lab. And so how do we make protocols for conduct by folks from other disciplines? Another part of being light and tight for us is how many farms can you do in a day? So we have quite a few farms in some of the states. And so we target all the time that any individual protocol we're going to be doing, we can do 3 farms in a day if they're geographically close together. So, you know, if you're scattered all over your state and you only have 1 farm in an isolated location, of course, you're not going to be able to do that. But for folks that do have clusters, we try to prioritize making it possible to do 3 farms in a day, and that sort of qualifies as our light rubric. And we don't always make that, but that's always our target. Then another part of doing this for non-experts is that your protocol has to be honed over time to leave little room for interpretation. So we really treat, in the OnFarm group, we treat a protocol in terms of how it's written, how it's communicated to people, just like we treat technology, where it has to be beta tested. It has to be watched. We have to see what kind of questions come in, and then we fine tune that protocol from there to make sure we're leaving just as little wiggle room for interpretation as we possibly can. Next slide. So short history of our growth here. Stephen mentioned that we're not new to this game. We have been having some protocols since 2015. Some of those protocols are now part of the protocols we're planning with all of you in 2021. There's some new ones, and there's new ones that are going to keep coming down the line. But you see a little bit of how we've been expanding this network over time. Next. So what it looks like for this year is a very simple randomized complete block design. There are only 2 blocks at each on-farm location. We're going to have just 2 treatments, cover crop and bare. And we have what we say is a minimal plot sizes, but by no means will all plot sizes be just this. We often find that growers want to establish a strip trial, prefer to go all the way to the end of their field. And that's not a problem for us. So we set a minimum of, we want 300 feet in length of these plots. And because we are now transitioning to be able to ingest data from yield monitors from all the major makers, we're setting our minimum width to 2 combine header widths of whatever combine they intend to use on that field. And so these are pretty large plots. But that's something we're trying out here for the first time. In the past, we've been doing all hand harvesting on all these plots. And we're wanting to be able to, even if we continue with hand harvesting, we want to be able to ingest that yield monitor data from the growers. Next. We have a pretty strong commitment that we're violating a little bit, but in general, we're only trying to give protocols to the on-farm group that have been beta tested, again, through that process of making sure that the technology works and making sure that the written protocol works and doesn't make the phone ring off the hook because it's clear and decipherable. We're getting good quality data back out of it so that we see the data. We have visualizations that say, yes, we are actually measuring something worth measuring. And so you can see here across the 3 years for which we're dedicated to on-farm right now through the SASCAP funding, what some of the protocols that we're lining up. And I just want to highlight here that, there is room for growth over this agenda. So we are planning on, we have set protocols for several things, and then we have beta tests. Beta tests are again, voluntary. So folks that want to be engaged in these beta tests are welcome to. We're not committed that they will make it to 2022. We're always just trying to make sure that this technology fits into our overall network. And so I'm asking everybody to think about any of the research that you do. how it might contribute to this network in the future. We are very committed to this not being just a SASCAP thing. We're trying to make this network something that is an institution that survives for a very long time. And so we are always trying to look for new beta tests of metrics or technology that we can use. And we can put those beta tests next year. We can put them in 2022 and 2023 if we think about this as an institution that's going to be ongoing. So for the on-farm team, we have, because we have a lot of set things in 2021, we have not been meeting like CE1 and CE2, but we are beginning now. So everybody who's on an on-farm, we are starting our monthly meetings here in July. That is your opportunity to be onboarding your people and yourself and making sure you understand what is going on. Next slide, please. And there is a lot of custom data flow that is really meant for you all. So I recommend getting on the tech portal, on the team portal. Take a look, there's a document for you to use with your growers there to onboard them and tell them what this thing is about. And we have an automatic enrollment system. So you can enroll your growers as soon as a grower talks to you and says, you know, I think I want to do this. I'm not positive, but here's my phone number, here's my address. We take very little information for you to enroll a grower, and that gets the process started. And if that grower drops out later on, that's fine, that's expected. We actually highly recommend you enroll probably double the number of farmers that you intend to actually execute in 2021, and just tell them with the understanding that, you know, they may have to be dropped. But one of the reasons we recommend that is because things happen. People don't get to plant their cover crop in the fall. There's a lot of reasons we can lose growers. So we actually have always over-enrolled growers. And I think it's time to get started on that process. So I better pause, I'm already over time. And we're gonna, next up is we have one of the core protocols that we really consider one of the core technologies across the on-farm network.
All right. So if you could actually unmute my video, that would be helpful. Okay. Can everyone hear me now? We good?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so sorry about that. My laptop doesn't actually have a camera. But good morning, everyone. My name is Alondra Thompson, and I work with Dr. Harry Schomburg at the USDA Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. And today I'm going to provide you a quick introduction into the Gateway and Node wireless data logging system that we developed for the on-farm trials in collaboration with Acclima Inc. And they're the manufacturers of the soil water sensors that we use in the project. Next slide, please. So the Gateway Node wireless data collection system is comprised of three main components, gateways, nodes, and sensors. The gateways and nodes provide us a low-cost data logging solution to gather data from remote on-farm sites throughout the growing season. Nodes are essentially data loggers. They collect the sensor data stored in flash memory and wirelessly transmit data to the gateway. The nodes can be used as standalone data loggers, but we use them with the gateways in order to get the data to the cloud. And we'll talk about that, like why that's important. The gateway uses an onboard cellular module to transfer data from each on-farm node to the cloud. The wireless features of the system eliminate the need for manual data collection, which is helpful. And they also minimize traffic into the experimental plots and allow us to monitor the data daily, which has been very helpful. Lessons learned from the past is that the faster you can react to issues, the more data you're going to collect and the less data you're going to lose. So like I said, the sensors we use on farm are manufactured by Acclima. The TDR310H sensors measure volumetric water content using time domain reflectometry. So they're very accurate without having to be calibrated per soil. So they're designed also to be glued to 1-inch PVC pipe to facilitate subsurface installation and removal. The temperature sensor, as you can see, has a flat profile to limit the gap that it makes between the litter bag and the soil surface. And the humidity sensor is encased in a PVC cylinder that protects it from water and insects while still allowing it to be exposed to air, so that way we're not biasing our data very much. Cool, next slide, please. So the on-farm sites, like you've heard, have cover crop and bare treatments arranged in strips. In each treatment, we put 3 soil water sensors in the soil profile at specified depths. The cover crop treatment has extra sensors, so it also has a soil water sensor installed 5 centimeters below the cover crop decomposition bag, and a temperature sensor just below the bag, like I mentioned. There's also a humidity sensor, or the humidity sensor is installed on the node structure, 29 centimeters above the soil surface, and that's to help us capture data about the microclimate between the corn canopy or whatever crop canopy and the residue layer. And then the gateway is installed outside of the plots, but in a location that is still within line of sight of the nodes, but also a site that's easily accessible to technicians. Right, next slide. So data flow from the sensors to the cloud begin when the nodes read the sensors hourly. That data is compiled and stored onto an onboard flash memory chip on the nodes. And then after the node compiles the sensor data, a request from the gateway initializes transfer of the data via low-raw radio. Low-raw is just long range. The gateway receives the data and stores it onto a micro SD card, and then every 4 hours, the gateway uploads any new data to a cloud server. Our PSA server pulls that data from the cloud server at regular intervals and loads the data into a database that PSA researchers can access. The database also feeds a dashboard that technicians can use to monitor their incoming data from the systems that they have installed. And so that also includes the privacy issues and to not overwhelm everyone with all the data that's coming in. And after the data are validated, growers involved in the OnFarm study can access their data via a dashboard that we've designed especially for them. And the data also feed into the decision support tools that are being designed to support producers interested in using cover crops, which is kind of one of the big goals of this project. Next slide. So like I said, this is a very brief, quick introduction into the Gateway and Node wireless data logging system. But if you'd like to learn more about it, check out the videos that we have on the PSA YouTube channel. We've got one up and we've got another coming soon. And that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Alondra. Next up, we have Resham Thapa to talk about the nitrogen and decomposition work.
Hi, I'm Resham. I'm a PhD student at the University of Maryland. I work closely with Dr. Ishpin Marsky at the Sustainable Ag Systems Lab at Maryland in Beltsville. So the main aim of this multi-state intersite litter bag study was to determine how soil management and climate drive residue decomposition in nodal systems and calibrate and validate process-based residue decomposition models, for example, Syrizian and mulch. These models currently uses soil moisture and temperature to adjust decomposition rate, and the models were highly effective in predicting decomposition and nitrogen release from incorporated residues. But when it comes to surface applied residues, the moisture and temperature fluctuate dramatically at a diurnal scale. Therefore, the models that currently use the soil moisture and temperature overpredicts decomposition and nitrogen release from surface applied residues. Therefore, we are developing the residue submodel that uses easily available weather information to calculate or estimate the residue environment such as residue water potential that will then be used in the process-based models for modeling and the decomposition and nitrogen release from surface applied residues. So the data that is collected from this on-farm network will be used to calibrate and validate these improved models. Next slide, please. Here, I'm showing a little bit of results that has been out from the past 3 years of research from this OnFarm network. You can see the decay rate is a function of different climatic variables: the mean daily air temperature, humidity, cumulative rainfall, and the number of rain days. So from the past 3 years of research, what we see is that the humidity and the number of rainy days were better predictor of K values, that's the decay rate, as compared to air temperature and cumulative rainfall. Next slide, please. So historically, cover crop decomposition studies have mostly been focused on understanding how decay rate is influenced by biomass, the quantity of cover crop residues, and the carbon to nitrogen ratio. The importance of residue chemistry, such as the carbohydrate, holocellulose, and lignin content, has largely been ignored, and our results suggest that having this information might be critical to improve our process-based models in understanding the decomposition and nitrogen release from surface applied residues. Next slide, please. So coming to the protocol, from each cover crop plot from each farm site, we'll harvest 2 separate 1 meter square areas from each block. The weight will be recorded, and then the biomass from both the meter square areas from each plot will be mixed together to prepare 12 liter bags, out of which 2 are timed 0 bags, and the remaining will be deployed on the farm. In total, we'll have 24 liter bags in each farm site. The bags will be collected at 0, 14, 30, 60, 90 days after cover crop termination, and finally at harvest. The bags, after collecting from the field, will be immediately transferred into the oven dryers at 60 degrees Celsius. After oven drying at 60 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 days at least, we'll record the weight of the bags after scraping the soil that is added on the surface of the litter bags. The content of the litter bags will be finely ground and analyzed for carbon and nitrogen concentration. Similarly, we'll do assaying on all the cover crop litter bag samples to correct for soil contamination. The NIR analysis will be done to estimate the percentage of carbohydrate, holocellulose, and lignin content on the initial times 0 litter bag samples only. Next slide, please. So things to remember: always use Kobo forms and scanner. Avoid manual data entries to ensure data integrity and uniformity in the database. Record if the site had more than 40% legumes, because this is a critical piece of information while deciding the empirical equations that is used to predict carbohydrate, holocellulose, or lignin based on NIR technique. Biomass sampling should be done based on planting methods. For broadcasted cover crops, we'll use quadrants. For drill-seeded cover crops, you need to measure the spacing between the drill lines. Once you input that information into the Kobo forms will return you the information regarding the number and the length of drill lines to harvest. Next slide, please. So if the cover crop has been terminated before the planting of the next cash crop, we'll place the litter bags on the headland of the farm or in the deserted areas near the farm. This is to ensure that the bags were not damaged during the planting of the next cash crop. Once the farmer plants the cash crop on a particular farm, then we'll move the bags in between the crop rows. Next slide, please. So for more detailed information about biomass sampling and preparation of litter bags, please visit our YouTube channel. And thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Resham. So I think I'm going to get us back on time, and I'll just skim. I had just an illustrative example of what we're committing to you all with beta testing. And so there, we have been using a weed protocol for the last couple of years, and we're very excited about it. It's actually been a very interesting project, but and we're going to use it for some small plot in the future, but it wasn't the best fit for our large plot work. So we're trying out a new one this year. And I wanted to just highlight that for a second for all the folks thinking about posing new beta tests to the network, is that your first one doesn't have to be the one that happens, and that's okay. We oftentimes end up with spinoffs from that. But also, we really love dueling protocols. I mean, it's okay to be thinking about, you know, trying out and testing out with a small network 2 or 3 different protocols to see what is best going to fit the nature and scale of what we do.